It's nice to see everybody. Oh, you happy people.
Hi, everyone.
Well, let's get started. Candida, do you want to hit us off? It's 7:05, 5 minutes in. Let's go.
Yeah, hi, welcome everyone. We're so excited to have you here. 100 Women is excited to welcome you to our second community conversations, our second Galentine's Day event. This is an event that we hope that we could do more of, maybe 2 or 3 a year if it takes off, and that would be our goal. So I want to introduce you to my co-chair, Elizabeth Zimmerman, also known as Zim, for those of you who know her. 100 Women is a 10-year-old organization. We are very excited to enter our 10th year. And with that, we have given to date $260,000 to nonprofits in Rhode Island. So that is a big celebration for us, and we're happy to have you be included in that. We are a steering committee, and our steering committee members are Brenda Shannon, Kathleen Malin, Sierra Barateri, and Mary Small, who are all on the call tonight. Our moderator for this evening is Sarah DiCataldo, and Sarah is a member of 100 Women and the founder and CEO of Carish. And Sarah is a nonprofit consultant with extensive experience working with community organizations to advance their missions. So if you want to know more about 100 Women, you can probably, I don't want to go too long, but you could go to our website, 100 Women Who Care, RI, and you can find out all about us, the charities that we've given to, what our mission is, and about our members and everything that we do. I don't want to take up too much time doing that. So I want to turn it over to Sarah, and she is our moderator for the evening, and she will introduce our panelists, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Candida.
Thanks so much, Candida, and thanks everyone for joining us tonight for this lovely Galentine's Day event. I'm so excited and I'm honored to be the moderator of tonight's event. So welcome to everybody and thanks so much for joining us. So I'd love to start off with just a little introduction of our panelists today. And we've had a little bit of a change up, so roll with us. But I'm going to introduce our first panelist, Naomi Mark. Naomi is the Vice President of the Rhode Island Coalition for Black Women. She is a licensed realtor and is the CEO of Black Market Realty. Naomi earned a bachelor's degree in business entrepreneurship from Lynn University and is currently enrolled at Purdue University in their Masters of Communications program. After 20 years of working in law enforcement communications, Naomi retired and decided to pursue her passion for social justice. Her work at the Rhode Island Coalition for Black Women includes advocating for the education, health, and economic empowerment of Black women and girls in Rhode Island. She is on a personal mission to dispel myths about homeownership, and she believes that everyone should have access to building wealth through real estate ownership. Welcome, Naomi.
Hi, thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you, ladies, for having me here today. A wonderful Galentine's Day event. And I appreciate and welcome the conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you. Our next panelist is Cristina DiChiera, the director of the Women Project Education Fund, which is a nonprofit organization that uses the arts to build a more just and equitable Rhode Island. Through her independent consulting business, she provides grant writing and strategic planning services to artists and organizations, as well as public art planning and placemaking strategies to civil engineering firms and municipalities. She served as the manager of the Visual Arts Department at Brown University, director of artist programs for the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts, and director of the State of Rhode Island's Percent for Art program. She's also served on grant and portfolio review panels for the National Endowment for the Arts, the Rhode Island Foundation, state arts councils, and nonprofit arts organizations throughout the Midwest and New England. She received her BFA from Eastern Michigan University and her MA in Women's Studies from The Ohio State University. Welcome, Cristina.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Sarah. Happy to be here.
Great. And our final panelist, Aline, is a former refugee from the Democratic Republic of Congo and a current resident of Providence, Rhode Island. She is the executive director and founder of the nonprofit organization Women's Refugee Care, which provides assistance to refugees from Africa. She was born in a country where the customs prevailed against rights. She witnessed firsthand how much women and children were discriminated against. She was raised in an environment where a girl going to school was considered a luxury. She made a personal vow saying, if I become educated and get a chance, I will defend women's and children's rights. She is a social worker by career with training in human rights. She is passionate about making positive changes in people's lives and giving them hope. Her goal is to ensure that the Women's Refugee Care Program of Rhode Island becomes a resource center for our entire community. Welcome, Aline.
Welcome.
Great. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight. We have a series of some great questions, and I'm just going to kind of bounce them around to our various panelists so you get to hear different perspectives. The first question, and I'm going to direct this first question at Naomi. In your experience, why do you think collectives have the unique ability to make change and initiate action?
Great question. Well, we know that Black women are underrepresented. We're underrepresented in boardrooms in corporate America, in law enforcement, in the medical field, tech, just to name a few industries. And it's difficult to become something that you cannot see, right? According to the US Census Bureau, more women of color are in the labor force than Hispanic white women. Yet Black women suffer a lifetime of wage loss, about $1 million compared to half of that of white women. So RICBW believes that women who become successful in their own lives can share their testimony and support with others. And so just giving you a personal story for me, I moved here to Rhode Island 4 years ago. My husband is a native Rhode Islander from Providence, and I moved here for love. When I retired from, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and doing communications and director work, I thought that when I transitioned here, it was going to be pretty easy for me to incorporate myself into the workforce. And what I found was that was not so much the case. In Rhode Island, it seemed that there was a lot to do with connections and who you knew within the corporate, the space. Entry-level positions I was too qualified for, and anything that was a little bit above that, I wasn't given an opportunity because I didn't know the right people and I didn't have the right connections. And so the then president of RICBW, she connected with me, and on a personal level, she was able to provide some much needed networking and mentorship that within a very short period of time, allowed me to navigate the corporate, space here. And it really made a tremendous amount of difference of whether or not I was even going to really want to stay in the state, because I found it to be so difficult to navigate, the corporate area. So our members are actively involved, and we have a few committees that we feel like are extremely important. One being the education, second, economic empowerment, and third, our political action committees. And so we believe that collectively together, we can leverage, our resources, which could either be, our personal connections, our talents, our education, or it may be, our economics, our monetary, our finances, how we can help each other grow. And so that's how I think collectives can, make a difference here in Rhode Island and the work that we do through our RICBW.
That's wonderful. And it sounds like this collective really helped you. Now you own your own real estate company, real estate firm.
Absolutely, absolutely. it's very important. When we found out that Rhode Island is the last in the whole United States for Black home ownership, we realized that we have one of the best programs to allow to help individuals become homeowners. We have Rhode Island Housing has one of the best down payment assistance, programs here in the state. However, it's just not reaching our communities. And so I'm really invested into ensuring that our people can, can become build wealth through home ownership.
Yeah, well, especially this time post-COVID and a crazy
Absolutely.
housing market.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much, Naomi. How about Cristina? How do you feel that collectives have this kind of unique ability to make change and initiate action in our community?
So there's a few different things I thought of when I considered this question, and one that maybe seems perhaps a little obvious, but is really important to the group that I work with, the Women's Project Education Fund, because we are a group of creatives. And truly, when I started working with this group, I am the newest member in our 501c3. It's the inspiration and motivation that these women give me. My co-members are performers, graphic artists, visual artists, art teachers, and they come up with project ideas that never cease to just completely take me by surprise and get me so motivated. And when they bring their creative skills to those projects, when you see the visuals of what they do, when you see them working through an idea creatively, it just gets you excited. I have a background in the arts, but when I came to this group, they had originally hired me as a consultant to do grant writing and strategic planning for them. And that's sort of my role. That's how I think of my role, is to think about the administrative piece and the fundraising piece and the organizational piece. And they pull me out of that and they get me back into the creative work. And I so appreciate that. I mean, we just did an action at the State House. I can't talk about too much because hopefully you'll all be seeing some socials for our affiliate, the Women Project, which is a 501c4, which all of our members often volunteer for. But they pulled us in to do an action where we lit candles in front of the State House, and one of the members of their group did a reading about women's bodily autonomy and women's rights to reproductive choice. And when my chair mentioned that event to me, I was like, it's freezing cold outside. It's a weeknight, and what are we doing? And before I knew it, I was outside in the cold putting candles in front of the State House. So just having people, and would I have done that on my own? No. It's really getting a group of people together who motivate each other and get each other up when you feel tired and when you feel uninspired. They keep you going. And the reason that that's possible, I think, for all of us in the work that we do is because we may all be within our group, we may have differences, but we are all together in that group for a specific focus. And we know no matter what else we have going on in our lives, we will support each other towards that focus. And the collective model, different from maybe a big institutional model, can be nimble, and it can support the individual in action. So one of us might have an idea and focus on that idea, or we can come together as a group, and either way, we know we've got each other's backs because we're all working towards the same goal. So to me, that is, there's many ways a collective can work together, but it is that coming together around a common goal and a common vision, and motivating each other, and inspiring each other to keep working on that goal together.
Absolutely. And I can speak to 100 Women and how inspiring my experience has been, just seeing this collective impact of women coming together, wanting to make and create change in the community. So inspiring is just incredible. And I feel lucky to have met a lot of you who are on here tonight, and each of you have inspired all of us in lots of different ways. So that's great. And just as a reminder, if you have questions, please pop them into the chat so we can make sure that we can ask our panelists. Aline, I'm going to direct the second question at you. And our second question is, what role do you think women in giving circles can play in addressing equity and social justice?
Yeah, so I want to make sure I'm not muted. Yeah, so the gender inequality is not only a pressing and moral issue, but critical to the economy. So I grew up in a traditional discrimination and the prejudice which imposed that blueprint that men are decision makers and women are just caregivers, which is a social problem. At Women's Refugee Care, we have a special focus on women because they are the most vulnerable, according to our background and also in the resettlement process. So what we do, we try to empower women. When they get here, they don't speak the language. They can't drive. The focus is to help them to become self-sufficiency, to have a voice, to get their voice back. We help them to communicate the language, to speak the English. We help them to get jobs because once they have their income, they can have their voice. Culturally, the women are totally dependent on the men. And when you depend, you can't have voice. According to our background, the women didn't have like education opportunity. And as you know, when you are not educated, you can't know about your right and you can't defend themselves. We try to avoid that discrimination, that gender inequality, and try to help women to get their voice back so we can be a role model to our society. As Gandhi said, educating a man is educating a person, but educating a woman is educating a family or a society. So we try to help women to be themselves in a new culture. For example, with our African manufacturing project, women find the space to distress, to speak about their issues, to have something to do, to learn the sewing skill, and also by the help of the therapist to help them. This is for those women with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, to cope with their stress, because we have those category of women who are always indoors. They don't feel even to go out, which is a failure. We need to be a role model for the women so they can feel proud to be women. Most of the women, they are not even proud to be women because they are voiceless and they feel very vulnerable in a new country, in America. Yeah, so we have different activities, different focus to just help women to step up. That's why we need women in the policies, women in leadership. When women are heading up, when we have heroine, but you will find nowhere talking about those women leaders who are making changes in the world. Yeah, so, yeah. We need to inspire, to influence, to help women to create goals for their futures so we can help also the young women. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really amazing the work that you do with refugees coming here. And although it's a different perspective as a former victim advocate, trauma can really impact and break the spirit of women. And so giving them the opportunity to heal and connect is such an important part. So thank you for doing what you do. Cristina or Naomi, does anyone want to add?
Yeah, I'm happy to add. So I was thinking about how in anywhere we need multiple sources of funding. You know, those of us who are doing work in the community benefit realm, in the social justice realm, and the arts. I mean, we are constantly needing to find sources of funding, and it's a constant struggle, and it is a never-ending struggle. And here in Rhode Island, we do not have as many major foundations. We do not have as many big corporations. We do not have as many larger businesses, and we do not have as many deep-pocketed philanthropists as they do in the Boston area, in the New York area, in our neighboring communities. And unfortunately, that leaves a lot of us struggling towards the same sources of funding. And all of the work that, and Rhode Island has a large number of nonprofits. And as far as I have known, working in the giving sector, as well as working for bigger institutions, I mean, I can't think of a nonprofit that's not deserving of those funds. So in Rhode Island, we really need people to be thinking philanthropically. And one thing that is lovely about the model that you all have is that because foundation giving can be very cumbersome to get, council funding can be very cumbersome to get, and we are all, our organization is all volunteer. None of us is making any money doing what we're doing. And I'm sure that my fellow panelists are just getting rich doing the work they're doing. They're just eating bonbons and going on fancy vacations on the millions of dollars they're earning. So I jest. So having to really, bend over backwards to get all the different sources of funding, it's a real challenge. So to have groups that come to you, have groups that are researching you, and having groups that, want to support your work, and similar to what we were just talking about, the power of collectives, groups that can be nimble in the way that they support you is a really wonderful thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if just in this call today, some of your members, might hear me speak and be like, oh, creative projects, that's something I'm interested in. How else can I help that group besides money? Refugee women who are suffering from PTSD, that is pulling at, my sense of justice. And I want to help that group in so many different ways. And if you work for a foundation, or if you work for another kind of funder, there's real strict rules about how you can and cannot support the organizations that appeal to you. And if you're an individual, you may or may not know, or you may feel like your donation is a drop in the bucket. But a collective like this, similar to the way the we and collectives empower each other in the work we do, your collective can encourage each other to give more, to help more, to tell other people about the work that these groups are doing. And I would just mention that, my group being a 501c3 that was born of a 501c4, we live in this weird place where we are fighting a little bit of a tricky battle, figuring out how to make sure foundations will fund us, because we are penalized for having come from a 501c4 that many of us still affiliate with, but being a 501c3, and we've lost some funding because of that structure. Again, that's because of those rules and regulations that those funders follow. But a group like yours, you can fund whoever you want, and you can fund however you want to, and that's a very beautiful thing. So I think empowering each other and supporting each other to be nimble and to be creative in the way that you fund entities is a really good thing.
And Cristina, for folks on the call who may not be aware, do you mind clarifying the difference between a 501c3 and a 501c4?
So a 501c4 is a political action organization. So as a 501c4, the donations you receive are not tax deductible, and you are generally not qualified to apply for grants because you are actually trying to change policy, and you are actually trying to do direct political, you're trying to impact politicians and municipal budgets. A 501c3 is a charity that is considered to be a community good, and that's usually social welfare, arts and culture, things of that sort. And you're not dealing with policy or politicians. You're not trying to impact the political system, but you might be fighting towards social justice issues. So you might be trying to, fight homophobia, work for women's rights, any of those things. So all working towards the common good, but one in a political realm and one in a cultural realm. And so our group stemmed from a group that was doing political advocacy work specifically that was pro-choice, and then broke out as a 501c3 that focuses on using the arts towards broader social justice issues.
Great.
One thing, Cristina, I do agree with you on donors being more nimble. And one of the things that I really enjoy about this particular panel and us being from different organizations coming together is really understanding that sometimes it's not just about funding, but it's also about the power of maybe, just having a connection. I think sometimes we can silo ourselves into just doing one independent work, and we don't realize that just reaching out, from our, organization or our group can have a tremendous amount of impact, right? I'm certain I've learned a lot about your organization, and I know that there are artists within my group that I would love to see, how there can be some sort of a connection. And, we just talk about the power of networking. You may know, I may know someone that, through your refugees that may need some sort of assistance or, just getting in the door to, for education purposes or maybe for employment. So there's more than just funding. And I think that's one of the things as women collectively, we've always been able to overcome things. Obviously with women's rights, we've been able to unite on that front. I think in Rhode Island, one of the things that I really admire about Sarah connecting me with this particular panel is just the opportunity to get to know what's going on in Rhode Island and trying to find ways that we can connect just outside of, just the dollars. We know that it's important, but there are also a tremendous amount of impact with just, sharing your talents and also your connections. So how do we leverage that as well? Because that can also, really transform our lives, right? So kind of looking outside of just the dollars and seeing how we can collaborate in many ways to have a greater impact in our community.
Absolutely. And just, I want to let you all know that Kathleen is putting all of the organization's website links in the chat in case anyone attending wants to learn more, make a donation to one of these amazing organizations. Speaking of funding, right? And from my experience, so I do a lot of grant writing, and one of the things that I love about 100 Women is they truly make this funding accessible, and it truly is an equitable process for everyone. I wrote a grant this week, and the amount of data and documents and financial documentation that they needed. There's so many amazing grassroots organizations, community-based organizations doing wonderful work who don't have the capacity to apply for a lot of these grants. And so, the one-page application that 100 Women has, and this, you don't have to report to us. It really just makes it accessible. And it's really empowering to just see it. All these women pool their resources together and hand a $5,000 check to someone, where the grant that I was writing that required hours and hours and hours of work was for $2,000. So kudos to 100 Women.
Yep.
Yeah, really
That's great.
equitable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So the next question is, how do collectives lead to greater learning opportunities and foster community engagement? Cristina, do you want to start us off? Aline, do you want to start us off? Anyone want to jump in?
Aline, do you want to start? Because I saw you put your hand up a minute ago. Did you want to say something?
Oh,
about
I'm
the
sorry. I
last
didn't even
topic?
see you.
Oh, that's okay. I'll start on this one since I just interrupted everything. Sure. So this is about collectives creating greater learning. Xander Morrow, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, I was kind of excited to talk about this with her a little bit. So I'll just speak on her behalf for a second, because when I first came to Rhode Island 22 years ago and had just received my master's degree in women's studies, I heard about this collective of women who had just bought a building in Olneyville, and they were trying to turn it into an artist collective. And I had done my master's degree work with a focus on women performance artists. And so, you really couldn't find a better fit. So I started just hanging out there. And one of my earliest memories is putting up a wall at what is called the Dirt Palace in Olneyville, and just being involved. And then I helped them do some grant writing as time went on. But just being in this room with a bunch of creative women who had an idea, and against all odds, young at that time, most of them were in their 20s. I think I was 29. And having an idea of how to create a collective art space, and everybody just getting together and sharing their skills and making it happen really was pretty magical. And I hope Xander does come to one of your future things, because she is a force to be reckoned with. She is a truly incredible person. And she honestly was one of the reasons I stayed in Rhode Island. So it's because of being in that place and being surrounded by creative women who were supportive, I originally come from Detroit, and when I left that city's art scene, it felt a little bit more competitive, a little bit more, it just felt a little less inviting. And I came to Rhode Island, and there were all of these, I don't know, just these people who were, I think it's because it's such a small place. There were just all these people who all knew each other, and they were all involved in things, and they wanted to be involved in the thing you were involved in. And I feel like Rhode Island has always been that way. It's a place where if you say to somebody, I have an idea, or I have this project, somebody will say, either they'll say, oh, I'm interested in that, or they'll say, I know a guy, I know a woman who would be interested in that. So it's a beautiful thing about this place. And Xander was that for me at one time. So that coming together of people and sharing skills, and I wanted to mention, because I assumed this would be the case, and meeting Naomi and Aline, it clearly is the case. When the kind of person that gets together in this collective model are generally people who have superpowers. And one of the things that's exciting is seeing what people's superpowers are. And then when you start working with them, they show you what your superpowers are. The women who I'm working with now, when they do performances, or when they do big banners, or when they do particularly performances, because I'm not a performer, I'm so impressed. So, or graphic design, when Jocelyn Foy, who is one of our founders, whips out a poster, whips out a banner, I'm just like, how did you, it never ceases to amaze me. And then when I do final reports, or I organize our content management database, she's blown away, So it's like we all have these abilities, and when we divide and conquer according to our talents, it's very satisfying. So I think this structure helps us all learn from each other, not only what each other is good at, but what we ourselves are good at. And it inspires us to sort of raise the level of what we're able to do. And when you feel that happen to you, you want to pass it forward. You want to find the other people who want to get involved. And it's very, I don't know, it's what it's all about, right? That's what we're here for, is to help each other out and help each other figure out what we're good at. And similarly for your funding model, for your Giving Circle model, I think the way that you will inspire people to give is really important. Philanthropy is not about taking people's money. It's about showing people how they can use the resources that they have. Naomi, as you were saying, not just financial resources, but whatever resources they have to really feel like they are helping, and really feel like they are connecting with people, and making the world a better place.
And Aline, you talked about how many of the women that you serve never had an opportunity for education. Can you speak to how the work that you're doing here in Rhode Island is working to empower and educate and kind of inform and create this kind of knowledge base for these women who never really had that opportunity before?
Yes, yeah. Before I can go to that, I want to speak about how the collective of women impacted my life. When I came to the country, I came in 2014. I couldn't realize that I will do the work that I'm doing here because I knew that I'm coming to America, everything is set up, I will find any job for my life and I will be all set. But because of the struggles my family had when we get here, the language, the cultural adjustment, everything, the education of the children, everything, like all those challenges of being in a new country, a big country, helped me to think that I need to stand up and to be the voice of my community, especially the women. I did this work back home, but I couldn't imagine. Yeah, then I realized that the custom, our culture is following us in America because we are who we are. And once you get here, there is struggle. There is the American culture, there is our culture, those dependency of the men, of everything, the lack of your voice. I assume that will not work here. Yeah, so going back to your question, what we do, because the background of the refugees, when I speak about the refugees, I will speak about the women. It's so traumatic. They have heavy history full of trauma. They left their country unwillingly. They spent decades in refugee camps all over because the Congo, my country, has like 9 borders. You have to be in one of those neighboring countries for decades before you can get resettled to the US, for example. Life, there is no life, there is no education. And most of the women, when they come, they didn't have education opportunity because even the custom was preferring sending the boys in school than the girls. The girls are just caregivers, doing house chores, that's it. And when you've grown up in that culture, even you go to the refugee camp, there is no life, there is nothing. After a decade, you find yourself in the US. It's a big struggle because you are like blinded. There is the language. There is no way you can survive in this country without communicating. We don't have English. We are Swahili and French speakers from our colony, the Belgium. Yeah, so what we do, we focus on the language. We find mentors to families to help women to speak the basics of English. And once they are able, we can help them to do the cultural orientation. There is mail coming every day in the mailbox. They can't read. They have to go through different medical screening when they come 1 year in order to get their green card, for example. We have to be there to help them to understand, to be that bridge with the medical providers and the community. It's a big struggle. We go to the hospital when you feel sick, but here you have to go. It's a problem. Those immunizations, I will not talk about the COVID vaccine, just those immunizations. It's a problem for the community to understand why the way they treat here is not the same back home. Those, you go to the hospital, you go to the surgery, when you know that you will not survive without that. We try to help them. We do case management. We help women to be proud of themselves, to be proud to be here. It's an educational process. The English, we help them to find jobs. and it's still a big struggle when it's a first group of Black people in a company, they struggle. We try to negotiate with the managers of company to be tolerant, patient to our group, so they can be, because they can be fired easily. We try to teach them some basics according to their tasks to the company. A job where a 10 years old can do, you will see a 40 years woman being fired because of the language, because they are not feel welcomed. We try to address all those issues just to help them to be themselves. Most of them, they were born in the refugee camp, the women. It's a problem. They don't know even the good things about our original countries. We try to help them. Most have the PTSD. We try to regroup them, to have them. We have day programs for those women, just to find space, to distress, to speak about their issues, and to see how they can find solution. So it's a long process. The adjustment can take 10 years, 15 years, depend. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, communication is so critical to everything. And we did have a question that came in specifically for you, Aline, while you were chatting, but I think it's a question that we can ask all of our panelists, but maybe starting off with you, Aline, how can other collectives, how can the community, how can 100 Women or women in general best support your organization and the women that you serve?
Yeah, so as Cristina was saying, it's the matter of funding. Funding. There is more activities. There is a lot we can do to help women to be proud, to be themselves. Imagine how America is seen around the world. Sometimes you don't have any news to call back home. You don't have any news to call back in the refugee camps where we have friends, relatives, because we don't have any news. We struggle. If we get more funding, we can have more activities just to help ourselves. We just opened an African manufacturing project. We have our way to dress, like African fabrics. We want to have it here. We have tailors who can help us to feel like we are African, we are Congolese. But if you don't have anything, before we were buying, we were sending money back home to get like African clothes. But now we are trying to make it available at the center, which is great. If there is no money, there is no mission. Yeah, we need funding to try to see how people can smile and how we can give hope. I want to take this opportunity to thank 100 Women Who Care, because in 2015, our first funding came from you guys. We get 7,500, and I met with Elizabeth, which allowed our organization to have like a space, an office. And now we have different floors, like different offices, storage. The organization grow because of you guys. So thank you so much for the great work you are doing. And it's so amazing to see women on power, on leadership. When I am networking with women, I feel strong, because I was thinking it's myself who are struggling, because yeah, I'm Congolese, I'm in America, I'm just trying. But when I hear what Cristina is saying, I say, oh, wow, it's hard, but we need to keep courage. We need to go forward. Yeah, so thank you, for you all, for what you are doing. Thank you, it's so amazing.
Well, thank you. And Naomi, kind of the same question for you, but one of the amazing newer programs that you all are doing is specifically mentoring young girls and youth. And can you talk a little bit about how we could maybe help your organization, but also how important it is for all women, but specifically Black women, to be role models to young girls in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that. So we have a program called LEAD, and what it LEAD mentors young girls from middle school age, from the age of 12 until they graduate from high school. And so once again, we understand the power of representation, right? Just kind of giving a little bit of the facts. The Office of Juvenile Justice Programs, they said that 87% of women who attended a mentoring program actually went to college within 2 years of graduating from high school, right? They were 52% less likely to become become pregnant while they were in teenage years. And then they were 46% less likely to use illegal drugs or alcohol. And so it's definitely, impactful for us to invest that time, right, into young people. One of the things that we know that young people between the ages of 12 and 15, they're more susceptible to being mentored by an adult. But once they transition into their, late teens, they are more likely to be influenced by their peers. And what better way for them to have a positive group and network, a collective, right, for individuals within their own age group than to be in that specific program. And so LEAD, what it does is we expose them to the arts. They just recently went and saw the Black violinists, and they can communicate about issues that are going on, when things that were occurring with social justice issues such as, Floyd. That was very difficult for young people to be able to communicate and talk about what was going on in our communities. But through this program, they were able to have a voice and have individuals support them. And so for us, we are definitely open to membership. We have a tremendous amount of great work, and while we do appreciate funding, we also encourage individuals to become a part of the organization and find a way to become either a mentor or to join the organization, because we need individuals also to collectively come together and do the work, right? And so financial, we definitely need the support in order for these individuals to continue the programming and to be able to maintain this for them, but as well as membership is also extremely important. So the more people in the pot, the greater the impact.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And I just love the whole concept of, youth being mentored by adults, but also by one another. Really empowering. So we did have a question that came in, and I think we might have time for it. And so I'll open it up, and whoever jumps up first can answer it. But do any of your organizations have any particular goals right now to further or create policy change affecting women or young girls? Or is there anything that you'd like to see kind of policies created?
I can take off this is where my job gets tricky. I can take off my education fund hat and put on my Women Projects volunteer hat, and just let you know, the Women Projects web page that just got put up is to the 501c4. The 501c3 page is being built right now. So we are going to be creating a page that is specifically about our public art projects. But the Women Project is working towards policy that will allow state workers, which I was one for 12 years, to have a reproductive choice covered by Medicaid and by state health programs. So that is a piece of policy that is out there right now, that organization is working towards. The education fund, I feel like some of the work that we've been working towards right now tangentially has been addressing some of the policies that have been going on around the state, around the entire country, that have been sort of against critical race theory, that have been against, teaching divisive concepts, things like that. We did a public art project over the summer where we were doing big projections and performances that were giving people a little bit of a 101 about some of the connections between Rhode Island history and the transatlantic slave trade, because of course, as some of us know and some of us don't, Rhode Island was probably the most complicit state in the Union in terms of benefiting from the finances of the transatlantic slave trade. So people don't know this history, and people don't realize where, the entire city of Bristol, how it was built, or Newport. So just trying to get, just these visuals out there. The real goal of our organization is to give people a visual, a light bulb, an aha moment of, oh, there's something here I need to know. And that could be also about, how women and girls are trying to fare in the state of Rhode Island in terms, when they come over as refugees. It could be any number of things. So plug for the Women Project doing pro-choice work. The EACA is the piece of policy that they are working on right now. And for our group, we have a bunch of projects in the hopper that are public art projects. And if you want to follow us, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. That's the best way to follow us until our website is up and running.
Naomi, did you want to add to that, or tell folks how they can get connected?
Yeah, definitely we will connect with you. We have a political action committee, and right now our focus is on the election this year and how are we going to hold individuals that are running for office accountable for, to support our community, advance workforce preparation, education, entrepreneurship. And so as a collective, ensuring that we get individuals out to the polls. We have collaborated with the NAACP in the past to get the elderly out to the polls, especially in lieu of COVID. They're not likely to want to vote early. They prefer to go in on voter registration on voting day. And so getting them safely to the polls was an initiative that we have joined force with in 2020, and we hope to do that again in 2022. And so, that's some of the things that we're currently working on.
That's great. Aline, did you have anything to add?
Just a little bit. I did the Women Policy Institute with the Women's Funds of Rhode Island, where I learned a lot. I met with different great women. It was a one-year program. So I'm so excited, and I'm looking forward to see women in politics, because as I'm seeing things, if we have women, lot of women in leadership, in politics, women's situation will change. Even the earning situation, same diploma, but different income. Why this discrimination? I couldn't imagine going with a case of a family, of a woman, anywhere to the Human Service, the DHS, Department of Human Services, and coming back without any solution. In Africa, in our dictatorship countries, sometimes when you know where to go with a problem, you always find solution if you keep going, if you keep disturbing, if you keep pushing. But here I'm not seeing that. Any lawyer, any medical provider, any doctor in our countries can find a solution to a family problem. Here is not the case. I used to go with women to the hospital, for example. You will see, because she has a problem at school, for example, any kind of problem, she's hungry, she missed her job, she's fired. you will see the woman trying to explain to her medical provider the problem, thinking that a medical provider, she's in a position, she can write a referral and help me to find solution to any of my problem, which we don't see here. And people are always disappointed because of like their background. So we need women in politics, in the policy, because I assume when I find a woman heading, when I will explain a problem, because she know what we are facing, yeah, and she can always push up for a solution. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that is a perfect
I don't know if I'm
segue.
wrong or right. I don't know.
Well, thank you all so much.
Thank
I'm going
you,
to turn it
Zim.
over to Zim to close us out, but it has been a pleasure just talking with you all tonight, and thank you so much. So Zim, I will pass it to you.
So thank you so much to Aline and Cristina and Naomi for joining us, and Sarah for helping us moderate. And I will just close by saying it was interesting to me to hear our three panelists talk about coming to Rhode Island from very different places and encountering different kinds of challenges based on where they were coming from and what their previous experiences were, and coming into Rhode Island and really taking that on as a challenge to themselves and to the community that they surrounded themselves with and they built, to then reflect that back out, not only into Rhode Island, but into the world at large. And I cannot say how impressed I am with all of you for taking that one on. It's really, the work you're doing is fantastic. And I'm really proud to be part of 100 Women to support you and to have our members support you, because we are definitely a collective coming together in a very, small amount for each of us, but a large impact as a collective. And Aline, thank you for the shout out for the support that we gave your organization, because I mean, when we learned about your organization, how could we not support you? It's a democratic organization. You can nominate any nonprofit that serves Rhode Island if you're a member. And then 3 are randomly chosen and members vote, and Women's Refugee Care was a recipient. So, and in fact, Sarah here also had put in an organization at Sojourner House, and they were also a recipient. So we've funded so many interesting organizations, and along the way learned about them. That is part of it too, is the connection in the community that you learn about. Like most of the organizations we've never heard of before they're brought to our attention by members. So you can check it out on our website. We have a list of all the organizations that we funded in the past. So with that, I'll just say thank you to everyone for coming. And if everyone, I'll follow up with an email that you get if you want to get in touch with any organizations, or you have any further questions to follow up, just let us know, and we're happy to pass them on or give you any more information that you need. So thank you. And thanks to Candida as well for kicking us off, and to Kathleen. I got to give Kathleen, our steering committee member, the super props for running our Zoom call. So thank you for that, and for Brenda for fielding our questions. So thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you all.